At least 47 killed in clashes between Daesh terrorists and Syria rebels. And Shabab militants seized 2 towns in southern Somalia. Welcome back. Those were the main headlines. Now more details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived home on Saturday, wrapping up a week-long Asian tour, which included stops in Singapore, China and Indonesia. During his tour, the president held talks with the 3 countries' heads of states and senior officials that focused on a number of regional and international issues of mutual interests, as well as means of fostering bilateral ties in various domains, notably the economic one. President al-Sisi also witnessed the signing of a number of memoranda of understandings and agreements between Egypt and the 3 countries with the aim of bolstering bilateral economic ties. The following report shed light on the president's tour to Asia.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi returned home on Saturday, wrapping up his week-long Asian tour, which took him to Singapore, China. In Singapore, the first leg of his tour, President al-Sisi held summit talks with his Singaporean counterpart, Tony Tan, in the Astana, during which the 2 leaders discussed bilateral ties as well as regional issues of mutual concern in the Middle East. President al-Sisi also met with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, where they reviewed the investment opportunities in Egypt, especially in the field of ports. The president witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between a Singaporean company in the desalination of seawater and the Suez Canal Authority to build a specialized station to produce water and electricity in the city of Al Ain al-Sukhna. He visited the interreligious organization and one of the biggest ports in the world, expressing hope that Egypt would make use of the Singaporean expertise in port management. During a televised interview, the president hailed Singapore's people for their great achievements in different fields, notably industry and education, and delivered a message to all tourists and investors to assure them that Egypt is stable. While speaking about Egypt's efforts to combat terrorism, he stressed that an international integrated strategy should be placed to deal with such a phenomenon. President al-Sisi later headed to China, where he held talks with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, that focused on regional and international issues of mutual interest. The 2 leaders discussed means of boosting bilateral ties in various domains and means of attracting Chinese investments to Egypt. The president said Egypt and China had embarked on a strategic partnership, pointing out that his visit is the second in less than a year. The president noted that the steps are underway to implement projects discussed last year. The 2 heads of states witnessed the signings of a number of joint cooperation agreements that included a deal to improve productivity in 14 energy and transportation, as well as establishing a new electric line connecting Cairo, the 10th of October city, and the new capital. President al-Sisi attended, along with 29 leaders, China's huge military ceremony marking the 70th anniversary of its victory in the World War II. The president also met with heads of major Chinese companies which have investments in Egypt, including Huawei Company for Communications. The president called on those companies to participate in Egypt's new developmental projects, including the new ports of East Port Said and Al Ain al-Sukhna. The president said the meeting was an opportunity to discuss difficulties facing those companies, promising to facilitating the process of ports of East Port Said and a symposium of the Egyptian-Chinese business development. The president stressed the deep relations that bind Egypt and China and confirmed that the 2 countries are keen to strengthen those ties with the aim of achieving interests of both sides. The head of state asserted that China is considered one of the most trade partners to Egypt, an entrance for the Arab, African and European markets. President al-Sisi said his meeting with them serves as an opportunity that would acquaint them with the progress of the projects implemented in Egypt, and said that Chinese companies which want to invest in the new Suez Canal access will get the necessary support, noting that there are 3 main infrastructure projects ready for implementation in different cities and areas. He said that attracting investments and providing the companies with all the needed facilities is a high priority for Egypt. In Jakarta, his final leg of the tour, President Sisi held talks with his Indonesian counterpart, Joko Widodo, which tackled means of strengthening bilateral ties and increasing Jakarta's investments in Egypt. The talks also centered on means of eliminating extremism and terrorism in the Middle East. The Sisi held talks with the Secretary General of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, on boosting economic cooperation between Cairo and the Asian body. He witnessed the signing ceremony of two memoranda of understanding that exempts diplomats of both countries from visa requirements. The head of state paid a visit to a memorial located at the heart of the capital, Jakarta, that was built as a symbol to the country's independence.
For the fifth consecutive day, the Higher Electoral Commission, HEC, received on Saturday candidacy applications for the upcoming parliamentary elections. The committee said it had received so far some 3,777 applications, including 156 from female candidates. The commission said independent candidates are the majority of contenders, while only 520 are affiliated to 51 parties, adding that no party lists have been submitted to the panel. The Giza Criminal Court adjourned to October 8th the retrial of 13 terrorists accused of murdering Police General Nabil Farag after forces raided the district of Kardesa in the governorate of Giza in 2013. The court postponed the retrial to hear testimonies of witnesses. The defendants accused of forming a terrorist cell aimed at targeting police and army personnel. The charges against them also included committing and funding terrorist crimes, as well as establishing and directing an illegal group hampering state institutions. In another trial, the Cairo Criminal Court adjourned to December 5th the retrial of business tycoon Ahmed Ais and Amra Assel, the former head of the Industrial Development Authority, on charges of monopolizing the icon industry in the country. The trial was postponed to allow the prosecution to make its case. Saudi Arabia said on Saturday an explosion at a pro-government base in Yemen that killed 45 soldiers also killed 10 Saudis in the kingdom's first losses inside the country. Yemen state news agency WAM said warplanes from the United Arab Emirates struck Houthi targets across Yemen a day after 6 inside the country. The coalition, mostly Emiratis, were killed in an attack on the base in central Yemen. WAM said the UAE Air Force struck a plant in the Houthi-dominated Ta'ada province in northern Yemen, as well as military camps and weapons stores in the central IBB province and in the capital Sana'a, causing heavy damage. Meanwhile, the bodies of the Emirati soldiers killed in the attack on the base in Ma'rib province were taken to Abu Dhabi aboard an Air Force transport plane for burial. The UAE government has announced a 3-day mourning period. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi mourned the death of the Emirati and Bahraini soldiers who died in Yemen on Friday. President al-Sisi had a telephone conversation with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and lamented the death of 44 soldiers. The president also mourned the 5 Bahraini soldiers who were killed Friday in the Houthi attack on the Saudi-Yemeni border. In a telephone conversation, Bahraini King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa thanked al-Sisi for his call and wished him and Egypt more progress and stability. The soldiers were among coalition forces deployed on the restive border as Saudi Arabia leads a campaign against the Houthi rebels who took over large areas in neighboring Yemen. Among leads a campaign against